Mr. Brumby, as Premier of Victoria, you drafted the 2009 Green Paper on climate change and instigated commitments to reducing Victorian fossil fuel emissions. And Ms. Gillard, as Prime Minister, you introduced the controversial carbon tax as a pricing mechanism noted to actually reduce national carbon emissions. As prominent alumni, and Mr. Brumby as a Vice-Chancellor's Fellow, how important is it that the University of Melbourne divests its over $500 million endowment fund from the mining extraction industries most responsible for blocking action on climate change? And more generally, with hindsight, what do you think Australia should be doing to mitigate climate change, protect biodiversity, and promote consistent environmental governance?
I'm just looking at Glenn. Actually, the young man who's asked that question, I signed the book for her earlier, didn't I?
Yeah.
Rupert?
Yeah,
that was a mistake. So.
What about your superannuation fund?
And actually, Rupert said he did have a question, and I said, well, I'll invoke the old Jeff Bennett idiom. So, questions, comments, as long as there's no criticism. Well, this is a difficult issue, and the super fund that I chair, which is a $9.5 billion super fund, has investments in some of those industries that you refer to. Our industry is the motor trades industry, so motor cars at this point in our history do use fossil fuels. So for us, it's an interesting issue. For the university and for others whose trustee obligations are to get the best returns for their members, these are often difficult. So you have to look at this issue more in a risk management sense, and many funds have done that. And the risk management argument goes like this, that if climate change is occurring very rapidly and the world will hasten its transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy more quickly than people thought, are those investments which we hold in traditional industries likely to see declines in long-term value? And if that's the case, from a risk perspective, we may well do better to divest. It's a difficult issue, to be completely frank, for super fund managers and trustees to make a series of ethical decisions. I mean, we have responsible investing, so we're out of tobacco. Tobacco for us is an easy one, right? We're out of anything that is directly into tobacco. We think that's a clear-cut issue. The rest get complex. If you look over in LA with their super fund over there, their big fund, they have so many ethical considerations that often can't ever make a decision, right? So I'm just trying to say it's a difficult area, but what can often guide funds in this area is to look at it in a risk consideration. And by the way, I'll just say very quickly on climate change, and I say this in the book, I think it's fair to say that when I first went into Parliament, I had a different set of views about climate change than when I finished, and for that I'm grateful to John Thwaites and others amongst many. But under my government in Victoria, we really led Australia with climate change legislation and trying to hasten this transition from fossil fuels into renewable energy, and I stand by that 100% today.